Hello, physiotherapy practice owners. So to have a really successful physiotherapy practice, one of the parts is to make sure that the actual practice runs without you as much as it can, meaning that you need to create leaders within your practice to run it for you. In this episode, we're going to show you exactly how to do that. Hello and welcome to today's episode. It is called How to Create Physio Leaders and it's part 1. Now, what I hear from a lot of physio practice owners is they tend to be inundated and they're always busy and got their hands full when it comes to operating and running the actual practice themselves, meaning that they are doing a lot of administrative work, a lot of clinical work, you name it, finance, accounting, bookkeepers, sales, marketing, training, mentoring, all of that kind of thing, which can make you feel really overwhelmed and, almost feel like you have no time in your hand to actually do the things that you really wanted to do by having your own practice, right? So in this episode, we're going to be talking about an exact framework in how to look at your existing team, recognize leaders within that team and foster them into leaders for you and your practice so you can remove more from the actual practice, right? And then let the leaders run the practice for you, really allowing you to do what you really wanted to do when you first started your physiotherapy practice. Okay, so firstly, let's have a look at what the costs are if you don't take this route by creating leaders within your physio team, all right? So firstly, like I mentioned, you might be having your hands in a lot of pies, right? Doing a lot of things. And as a result of that, there is no way any one person can do everything in a business. It's impossible. There's a lot of things to be done, a lot of moving parts, and for them to be done well, it's impossible to be done by yourself. Which means if you don't if you don't train the leaders, if you don't create leaders within your group, you're going to disrupt quite a lot of operations, right? There's going to be holes and gaps and inefficiencies within your operations. That's going to be a big cost. And not only that, it's going to create you a lot of headache, a lot of work, your hands full, with no time for anything else other than actually running the practice, which is exactly the opposite of why you got into this practice in the first place, right? Owning a practice. Secondly, right, when you don't do this, right, you're going to have a higher cost in recruiting external candidates because there will be a point where you will have to hire someone, whether it be a practice manager, all right, even if it's admin staff or whoever it is, or more admin staff, you will have to hire somebody to actually take some leadership and onus on certain parts of the business. If you don't create it from within your team, all right, if you don't foster someone from within your team and hire somebody external, there's bigger costs, right, in recruiting. And that includes time and money, right? A lot of time and money for them to get used to the actual culture and the way your practice works. It takes time. So therefore, higher costs in resources, right? And as I mentioned, external hires almost always will take a lot of time to really get to know your practice and be in sync with it to be a fully operational leader, so to speak. It'll take time compared to somebody who's already been in the works, somebody who knows the practice and how it operates, somebody who's in that environment already. It's much easier for them to step into a leadership role, right? So it takes more work away from you, right? And the best way to do that is train them, nurture them, mentor them into those leadership positions. And for you as a practice owner, the biggest cost is more work for you, all right? Meaning that you have to step into things that you don't really want to, all right? Because you have to step in, which means you're taking yourself away from the things that you truly should be doing as a practice owner, right? So these are some pretty big costs when it comes to not hiring and nurturing the leaders from within the actual organization. All right. So let's have a look at the benefits. It's exactly the opposite. All right. So if you hire and train somebody who is from within your team already, right? So it's been in the works for a little while and you nurture them to be a leader, you're gonna really maintain, because that person will know the culture of that of your practice, right? They'll be able to maintain and even strengthen the culture of the clinic. They'll fit straight in. In fact, what research shows is the best leadership or the best leaders for an organization, they always come internally. All right. Generally, when an external leader comes in, understandably, like I mentioned before, a lot of things it'll take a bit of time to adjust a few things. The best leaders are always come from within, right? And like I mentioned, because they've been in the works for a while and they are doing they're stepping into the leadership position. So in other words, really now they are a voice and a platform to get your purpose and the way you operate as a business and as a practice through to your team. They will have a better understanding of the clinic operations as well. All right. And probably one of the most important things when it comes to training internal staff and letting them know about it right at the start, especially when you hire them, that there are potential to grow into more senior leadership positions, is that you create opportunities. All right. You let them know that this is not just a physio role. Right. This is not just a role where you come in and that's where it ends. It creates a future pathway forward, which gets really high performing staff really excited because they see an opportunity which they can progress through. Any high performer that you really obviously want in your practice, they will want growth opportunities. All right. And when you do that, you have a higher rate of staff loyalty. People will want to stay, right? Because they see real growth within your practice. And as a result of that, you're going to have a lot less turnover. All right. And another thing that is not here that I should mention is doing these things internally and training them this way from the inside creates a lot less work for you. It takes the work away from you, which means you have a lot more time to do the things that you truly want. And importantly as well, you have a practice now that runs by itself. All right. Which obviously creates some more time for you. So with your team, how do you do it? How do you start the process and how do you get people into leadership positions? So let's talk about it. The first thing you want to do is spotting the potential. Now, some of these things are going to sound very, very obvious, but it's very important for us to pay attention to these things just to make sure that, remember, your aim, one of your core aims is to remove yourself from all the things you have to do. All right. So if you look at the kind of person that you are, right, a lot of these qualities that I'm just about to tell you, you will see this in you. All right. So whenever you're looking for that leader to step in a particular area of your practice, right, you need to be looking for the same thing. Number one, problem-solving skills. When you talk to them, when you see them, when you hear about them, you hear this particular person is always solving problems. You might not even hear about the problems because they're solving the problems themselves. All right. So this is where making sure chatting to all your staff, even if you have a leadership team now, right, getting that leadership team to keep chatting with the actual team just to see what kind of challenges they've had and how they've solved it. If they're doing that and if they're showing autonomy in creating solutions and problem solving, that's a really, really good sign. All right. I'm pretty sure that's probably someone like you, right? It displays initiative. Now, to problem solve, you're going to show initiative. People who are always thinking a few steps ahead or what to do or what they need to do and not really afraid to take the step forward and actually taking the initiative, right? Once again, you may not see this. It might be happening in the backgrounds or behind the curtains in your practice. But once again, when you talk to the actual, your staff within the team, you'll get to know. And you really should ask them about, once again, the challenges and the kind of things that they really did overcome those challenges. All right. One of the things you probably can see very, very easily, though, is interpersonal dynamics. You will see somebody who is pretty well respected and liked and revered by the team. or someone who essentially they have a lot of influence, or at least some influence. You can see that, he's or he or she is a leader in that sense. All right, the people and their interpersonal relationships have some impact, and there's a bit of influence from them towards the team. This is probably something that you can see. Once again, when you talk to people within your team and you really keep in touch with them, you will get to know exactly who these people are. All right. But one of the most important thing for you as a practice owner now, this comes with the person. This is what they need to do. So problem solving, display initiative, interpersonal dynamics, this is something that they develop themselves. But for you as a practice owner, there's one thing that you need to do to really make sure that they have the best chance of doing those things. And that is create an environment where potential leaders feel encouraged to showcase their skills. So in other words, you probably discover this in the interview process. They've got a bit of energy, passion, bit of leadership skills. And so whenever you see that in somebody, it's up to you as a leader to really create a space, even if it's just one-on-one with them, make them feel safe, make them feel like they can take initiative, to really create that environment so that leadership skills like the problem solving, the initiative, and those interpersonal dynamics have the best chance to really grow and flourish. That's something that you need to create as a leader as well. Right? So how do you do it? Well, as I mentioned, even if it's just a one-on-one mentorship program, all right? So you already might have some leaders within your team, but obviously, you can never have too many leaders. In terms of there's so many parts of your business, parts of your practice that's running. So having a leader in each of those areas is obviously quite a good thing. So one of the ways you can do that is when you start to spot the potential that we just talked about in the previous slide, right? You can have a, buddy learning system where some of the mentors or the leaders get to now mentor the actual spotted leadership potential, right? You create that environment, create that safe environment to really step out, help them problem solve, make mistakes as well, right? Help them take initiative, right? And really get them to be themselves so they can really, interact with other people in a very positive way. All right. That's something that we can do. All right. And once again, what I see with a lot of practices that grow over time is the leader or someone like yourself, the practice owner, is always learning how to lead better. All right. There's actually a book, lots of books out there on leadership. Right. There's a book by James Maxwell. It's called The 5 Levels of Leadership. So if you haven't had a chance to read that, I really recommend you read that. It just really shows the kind of leaders that you have to be. And you as a leader, right, like I mentioned, all the successful practices that I've seen, they've always looked at themselves as someone that they need to improve their leadership skills of. And it's very important that you take the same view on yourself, because the more and the better leader that you become, the better leaders that you will create around you as well. All right. So really, this is all about learning what you need to lead as a more effective leader, a better leader. And effectively, as I mentioned in this book, a level 5 leader. All right. It'll create a lot more other leaders around you. That's one of the big things. And ownership opportunities. So whenever you've spotted some potential, or whenever you see some leadership, now, as you can remember, if you remember in how you got into where you are, owning your practice and running it, and perhaps other things that you led, maybe you were a captain of a sporting team or something like that, right? Part of your growth phase was, there's usually somebody who will trust you and see some potential in you to give you some actual tasks to handle, whether it be leading a team, or it might be yourself. You're giving yourself the actual task, right? And this is something that obviously when you're fostering leaders within the team, this is something that's very, very important for them. Remember, you've got to create that environment to really grow their skills, create that safe environment for them to really, really foster their skills. All right. And when you handle tasks, it's very, very important to know, acknowledge, and accept that as much potential as they show, they can also fail, all right? And they will fail. That's part of leadership. I'm sure, I've failed many times in my life trying to do difficult things. And I'm, almost certain that if you're listening to this, you probably have made a couple of blunders in your life trying to lead, right? It's part of it. So accepting the trials and the tribulations, right? Making sure you're okay with the failures as well, all right? So, but part of that is obviously making sure that you allow them to make the calls, make the choices, allow them to show initiative and problem solving. It's very, very important. Okay. Like I mentioned, when you do these things effectively and you're doing it as a high level leader, you'll see them grow in front of you, over time. And they'll start taking more responsibility, and they will have more leadership within the team, along with the mistakes as well. It's very, very important that they make the mistakes, in fact, right? It's up to you how to, make sure that the mistakes aren't too big, in terms of what you give them, right? There's always a saying where, you don't, if you have what we call a circle of competence, this is like a Charlie Munger. I don't know if you've heard of him. Charlie Munger is somebody who is very prolific in the investment world, and he has a lot of mental models. And one of his sayings is that you need to operate in your circle of competence, all right? Meaning that you need to do what you're really, really good at and stay away from doing things that are outside the circle of competence. Now, part of allowing someone in your leadership team that you're helping grow is allowing them to do things just outside their circle of competence. In other words, you don't give something completely brand new, quite a big task for them to do. More than likely, they may not have the success rate they're hoping for. So just really recognize what their circle of competence is and give them tasks just outside that. Okay. All right. So what are the real steps when it comes to looking at your team and creating leaders from within? Very, very simple, right? So like we talked about, take a minute, take a few moments to really look at spotting of leadership. Look at your team, see who stands out, see who takes initiative, see who, problem solve, right? See who has pretty good influence within the team. Have a chat to lots of people, maybe your leadership team, or if you are the leader, have a chat with your staff. Get to know the challenges of what they've gone through, what they've done about it, how they've solved it, and just observe what kind of influence they have on the actual, staff and their teammates as well. It's a very, very big important thing. Take some time to do that. And of course, launch a mentorship program, right? This is what I mentioned. Whenever you spotted some potential, it's up to you as a leader to create that environment to really help them grow into the leader that not only you want them to be, but they want to be there for themselves as well. So create a mentorship program. If you have leaders, if you have team leaders, get them to work one-on-one with the team. All right. And then, of course, create mini leadership roles and giving them the tasks and allowing them to make the calls and accepting, they're going to make mistakes. Really recognize what their circle of competence is and just doing things just outside it. So they're continually in a safe space. They don't feel like they're completely out of the depths of their waters, but they're slowly growing. And that's the key thing. So I really hope that was useful, right? If you enjoyed that episode, and if you have any questions about it, please let me know, and I'll put a comment in here, and I'm happy to answer any questions. But if you liked that episode, there are heaps more episodes like this, plenty of things to download, plenty of things to read, plenty of things to read about in our website, physiomarketing.co. Head over there. There's plenty of resources for you to grow your practice. And of course, if you want to have a chat with me directly, you can do that as well on the website itself. Go to physiomarketing.co. There should be a book a call button at the top right. Feel free to book yourself a time. Other than that, thank you for tuning in, and I will talk to you very, very soon.